Hey, as you're being seated, we're not going to be in one specific passage today like we usually are, but if you got notebooks, journals, pens and pencils, stuff like that, we're going to have a pretty extensive set of notes today that are more along the lines of just things that are happening at the church. So if those are things that you're interested in, then go ahead and break out your journals, break out your pens and pads and paper and all that kind of stuff. If you're visiting our church, if you're not a normal part of our church on a weekly basis, I want to kind of warn you a little bit. We're a verse-by-verse, book-by-book teaching church. And so typically if you show up, we're going to be right in the middle of a book, going verse by verse through that book. Today is not one of those days. We're in between books where we just finished 2 Peter 2 weeks ago. We're going to Judges. We're starting a new book study next week in Judges, which I'm very much looking forward to. And so these 2 weeks we took for a little bit of vision casting and talking about where we are as a church and where we're going, things of that nature. But I did want you at least to understand that because that's very much a core of who we are. And before I pray and before we get into this, I also want to give some qualifications before we start talking through what we're going to do today, okay? The purpose of today is really to speak to the conscience of our body as a church, okay? And I'll probably address that more as we go. It's to speak to the conscience, the mind, the heart of everybody who's a part of our church. It's also to help us as we move into the future to be of one mind. And we kind of addressed that last week when we talked about the ministry of the word, okay? I want us as a church, as much as possible, to be a group of people, even though we have different backgrounds, experiences, ages, all those kinds of things, that we are, as much as we can be, of one mind about who we are and why we exist and what we're doing and where we're going and all those types of things, because I believe that matters. Unity in the body of the church and in the body of Christ, it matters. The last two qualifications I'll give you. One is this: nothing that I say today, that the heart behind nothing that I say is to poke anybody in the ribs, to poke the bear, to cast an accusation, to criticize any person or church or experience or anything else. It's really about us and about who we are and our conscience with each other and before the Lord. I need you to understand that. And so just go ahead and remove any of that as we're going through some of these things. And the last qualification is this: nothing that I say today, okay, it's not going to be a bash, okay, number one, and it's not going to be a brag. And somewhere in between bashing and bragging is the humble brag. You know what the humble brag is, right? Okay. It's not going to be a humble brag either, okay? This is a talk that's been brought before the Lord in prayer, okay? My heart, in the best way that I know how, is submitted to God in these things. This is just so we can be of one mind and to speak to the conscience of those who are part of our church. If you're visiting, this is going to give you good information about our church so you can know a little bit about more who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. All right, so those are all my qualifications. So my hope is that I'm not going to apologize for anything else as we go through the rest of this time, okay? And so let's pray, and then we'll jump in together. Father, I believe that you're the one who started this church. It wasn't started by man or by man's plans, but we believe that it was by the Holy Spirit, just as you're the one who authored your word through your Holy Spirit. And Father, we're asking for your help in the governance of your church and the shepherding of every individual who's a part of this small local church. And Father, also that you would, as a church, always help us to keep in mind that we're a part of a large kingdom, a heavenly kingdom, an eternal kingdom, not a little tiny kingdom, not a small kingdom, as we can often incline our hearts to try to build. That, Father, that we would not be trying to build a kingdom unto man, but that we would be a small part of building the eternal kingdom unto God. Would you use us for that purpose? And in this time, would you do what we're hoping to see happen? Would you speak to the conscience of our church? And would you build us up in unity in the body of Christ? We thank you. We pray these things in the name of Christ. Amen. All right, so here we go. This is an update on the chapel. In case you did not know, the chapel is a church plant. We came out of Calvary Chapel of Chattanooga. We are affiliated with the Calvary Chapel Association, or what you may hear people refer to as the CCA. As an affiliated church, we have a relationship with the CCA. We have some oversight from an accountability perspective from the CCA, but we function as an autonomous, independent church. And that's one of the things that I saw very quickly that people did not understand when we came from Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga, as a lot of people assumed that it was a campus, or it would be like a satellite location or something of that nature. I want you guys to understand we have great depth of relationship with Calvary Chapel, and in fact, we have some leadership and oversight and accountability that is also a part of Calvary Chapel, but it's as a part of our board and a part of our independent church structure, and we'll talk a little bit about that more as we go. But the reason that I wanted to have this talk is, at this point, we planted April of 2017. How many of you guys were here for the very first chapel worship service? How many of y'all were here for that? All right. Looks like maybe half, probably maybe a little bit less than that. But that was 17 months ago, y'all. Okay, 17 months ago. And I don't know how that strikes you. Some of y'all are like, man, has that much time passed? Or some of you may be thinking, I can't believe it feels like it was just the other day. Or, I don't know. It almost feels like a different lifetime ago for me, okay? Like it really does. Like from then to now, it feels like lifetimes have passed. That's just my perspective from where I am at. All right, but here's part of the reason I want to have this conversation today, okay? Typically, when you have new relationships, you have a period that people refer to as the what? What do they call it? The honeymoon period, okay? The honeymoon period. I can think about my own marriage, and I can think the honeymoon, and I feel confident that my wife would say the same thing. She's here today, so if you disagree, don't say anything, please, okay? But, we felt like the honeymoon, that was great. That was a great time. There's nothing else to worry about. We're just invested in each other. There's nothing to fight about. There's nothing to argue about. There's no contention. We had a great time. The honeymoon was great. All right? Now, do you know what year we fought just about as much as any other year in our marriage? Not that we actually fight. I'm a pastor. I don't fight with my wife. We don't have those things because I'm in pastoral ministry. But if we did, hypothetically, do you know what year we would have fought probably the most? First year of marriage. First year of marriage. We had that very short honeymoon period, and maybe for some of you guys, the first year was great, or I don't know, but we had that very short honeymoon period, and then we had a lot of disagreement because we had different expectations within our marriage that we had not defined with each other. And so when we didn't meet each other's expectations, we rubbed each other wrong consistently all the time until we got those things out on the table and started to deal with them and started to develop expectations as a couple rather than as two unique individuals. Okay? Now, let's multiply that by 500 times. And what do you call that? Church. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Like when you've got a body of people, when you've got a group of people, and everybody has dynamically different expectations, that is a recipe. That's a recipe for division. A recipe for division, okay? And again, I believe that unity is a function of, is a fruit of the Holy Spirit, okay? So that's kind of the reason what we're going to do today, that it has kind of been birthed, all right? Now, for some of y'all, some of the things that I'm going to say today, you've heard in one avenue or another, because we do try to vision cast a couple of times a year, okay? But again, I need you to understand, this is part of the reason that we vision cast and we talk about the state of the church a couple of times a year, is because not everybody has come into the church at the same point. Like when I asked you a little while ago, how many of y'all were here for the very first service? Maybe half of you raised your hand. Some of you would say, well, I didn't become a part of the church until a year ago. Some of you would say, well, I didn't become a part of the church until 6 months ago. Some of you would say, well, for me, it was 6 weeks ago. And some of you are like, well, I'm still checking this place out because y'all might still be Fruit Loops, and I'm not 100% sure, okay? That's why we have to come back to these things, and so you may have heard some of these things, but for others, it will be brand new information in an attempt to get us on the same page. And another reason why I'm doing this is because I know that as we are growing, one of our greatest needs as a church is to improve our lines of communication, okay? We need, as a church, to improve communication in every way and throughout every level of our church. That needs to happen, and it's a big undertaking. This is a part of doing that, okay? Last thing I'll tell you before we actually jump into the pragmatic stuff, the mechanical stuff, is this, okay? You have our pledge as a church that when we talk about communication and when we talk about what's happening in the church, okay, that as things come to us from the body, okay, we're not afraid to have conversations about things that are happening in the body of our church, what we believe, where we're going, how things function, how they operate, whatever the case may be. You have our promise that this is what we will do if we receive feedback or questions or whatever the case may be, okay? We will try as best we can to humble ourselves before the Lord, knowing that this is His thing, that it is not our thing as men, okay? All right, number one, we'll humble ourselves. Number two, we will listen. We will not ignore the things that come up from the church body. And number three, we will ask ourselves as we make decisions as church leadership, how do we best shepherd the people in our body? And part of what that means also is that we will not do everything that everybody would like us to do, okay? So sometimes that means, dude, I wish we would have thought about that a long time ago. We need to put that in place. Other times it means, no, that's probably not the right thing for the shepherding of our entire body. It may be something for the individual, but not corporately, things like that. We will ask the question, how do we best shepherd our body through the things that we are aware of? So here we go. This is kind of a past, present, and future look at the chapel, and we're going to start with the past in just a minute, okay? And just before we get there, one other thing, this will be up on the screen. For the sake of a little bit more information, I am going to try not to repeat myself with everything that I say today from past times, okay? So if you will visit the website, for those of you who are unfamiliar, there are a couple of messages I would invite you to listen to learn more about our church that I may not cover today, okay? And this is showing you where to go to get to the teaching section of our website. There's one place called Topical Teachings, okay? You got recent at the top. If you go down to Sermon Series, you got Topical Sermons. If you go to Topical Sermons, you've got one message called Membership Has Its Privileges from November 2017. Another one called Are We There Yet from April 2018, okay? Those two messages contain the story about where we come from, some about our structure, our mission, our vision, okay? How to get involved as a church, which that one we're still going to talk about today. And many other things, some of which are why we don't pass the offering plate. We're not even going to talk about that today, okay? That it's going to give you like ministry philosophy behind that with just sticking the tithe boxes in the back of the room. A lot of pieces of information that will not be covered today will be covered in those two messages if you want to go back and listen to those. And then the third one I would add was last week. Last week was the theological foundation of our ministry, okay, which is the ministry of the Word. So go back and listen to last week as well. This week is just practically the things that are happening. So as we go past, present, and future, let's start with the past. What has been happening over the last year, okay? And I do want you to understand just about everything that's going to come up on the screen right now has happened in essentially the last year, 12 months of our life as a church, 2018. First thing I got on the list, pray for me. Pray for Me is our intergenerational prayer campaign where we're connecting people of different generations, adults, college students, and youth or children in our church for the sake of community and just to promote prayer across those different boundaries within the context of our church. That's something we kicked off in the fall. Our youth group, while you may think that we've been announcing it for years, at the beginning of our announcements, that only started in January, okay? The youth group for us is still very much a brand new, living, thriving, birth, kind of organism or program in our church. That includes the first youth trip we had this last summer, where we sent 38 youth and adult leaders out to fellowship and do Bible study and on their first retreat this last summer. Ecclesia is something that's pretty new to our church, that ministry to 18 to 25, that age group that's meeting at the Mill every Wednesday night. We had our first 2 mission trips as a church. We had a group that went to do disaster relief out in Texas in the wake of one of the hurricanes, and we had a group that went up to Hamtramck, suburb of Detroit, to do Muslim ministry with some folks that we know up there that are on the field long term. Another part of our missions ministry is over the course of mostly over the last year, we've developed 10 plus ministry partners, what we would call ministry partners, some of which are local, some of which are domestic, some of which are international, okay? Just to get you started, Engage Detroit. That's the long-term team that's on the ground up in Hamtramck that we'll be working with on a yearly basis as a part of our missions ministry. We also financially support them as well. The Caring Place. The Caring Place is a local ministry, meeting the needs of the impoverished right here in Bradley County. We contribute to them. Hope for One. You heard me mention in the announcements about our collection for those guys. Don't forget to pick up a list of what they need on your way out of the church today. The list is in the lobby. Bring it next week, all right? There's your shameless plug number 2 today, okay? Hope for One serves prospective adoptive and foster families right here in Bradley County. The Foundation House. The Foundation House, another ministry partner, they meet the needs of single moms, okay? New Hope Pregnancy Care Center, okay? New Hope, these guys are ministering to expectant, crisis pregnancies, okay? Now, I want you to pay attention to this. The last 3 that I mentioned, look at them in reverse order. New Hope, in the womb. Foundation House, single moms. Hope for One, that's ministry to orphans and the families that would be taking care of them, okay? I want you guys to understand that this is not on the screen, but I want you to hear it from me. We are a pro-life church in every way you can be pro-life, from the womb to the tomb. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? That's what I believe. I believe in every facet, not just before birth, not just after birth, before, after, human being created in God's image, meant to be ministered to by the church led by Jesus Christ. We believe in that as a church. We're putting our money where our mouth is. We hope you are exactly the same way. Queens for Kings. These guys do education, evangelism, discipleship in South Africa, okay? Now, I know you're thinking, how'd you get hooked up with them? These are through relationships. These are through people we know, have known over the years and pursue relationship with. Cru. We support Cru right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, okay, on campus at Lee University. We support members of Cru who are out working in, what's the city? I just blanked on it. Yeah, I know L.A., but it's more specific from that. Oh, no, I got it. It is Long Beach. And I know because I just started thinking of Snoop Dogg songs from when I was 18 years old and not saved, okay? Just telling you, okay? But it's Long Beach, all right? These guys, we send money out to support people in Long Beach doing evangelism with teenagers in Long Beach, California, all right? So I want you to understand that when you give to our church, and by the way, as a church, we are what I would call a tithing church, okay? What that means is greater than 10% of our gross church budget will go directly out to ministry that has nothing to do with a program or a salary or whatever the case may be, and that's off the top. I expect that to grow as we challenge ourselves over time. And so what I want you to understand is there are tens of thousands of dollars going out from this church, even at our young age, to minister to people in South Africa and Muslims in Detroit and lost kids in Long Beach and poor people right here in Cleveland and moms and unborn children and all these kinds of things right here from the church, and you are participating in that. And my hope is that you will be motivated and exhorted also to look for ways as individuals that you can be involved in ministry similar to these things. Well, let's keep going. We got to keep moving. We have 14 small groups right now as a church. 4 of these are new for 2018. We kicked off 10 of them last fall, 2017. We've added 4 new groups in 2018. We have, I want to say, 8 groups that are still open if you desire to be a part of a small group. We'll talk about more of that later and where you find those things. But 4 new groups in the fall of 2018. Pastoral care, okay? Y'all want to talk about honeymoon period? The pastoral care needs of our church when we started till now are dynamically different, okay? This is an area of exponential growth in our church. You know why? I started to say something that somebody might have got mad about, but I wouldn't have meant it that way, okay? You know why? Because we don't wear our makeup in front of each other anymore, okay? That right? Like we don't put on the face that we did when we didn't know each other quite as well, okay? So the pastoral needs of our church have grown exponentially in the last year, all right? I'm talking weddings, I'm talking funerals, I'm talking biblical guidance, I'm talking hospital visits and the sick, I'm talking about anything that you want to think of regarding that situation. It has grown in many ways. Other events, a lot of which are new to 2018. Church lunches, which we do monthly. Typically, we try to do that the third Sunday of every month. The baptism we had this summer, we had 15 people baptized in identification of their relationship with Jesus Christ. We had worship nights in the spring. You can cheer for that. That's cool, all right? I'm just moving fast because I know y'all don't want to be here in an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is, all right? But I want you to cheer. We had worship nights in the spring and summer of 2018. We had a family day in the fall out at the park where we just got our families together and jumped on bounce houses and ate candy and, got our kids all wound up together. Our serve team dinner that we just had about a month ago over at the Mill, a women's gathering that we actually had last Saturday just for women of our church of all ages, including our youth, okay? These are events that have happened just over the last year. Now, in speaking to the conscience, okay, I'm sensitive of this for our staff, okay? I'm sensitive about this for our staff because I want them to be careful, okay? I want you guys to know that our staff, the vision that we cast to our staff, okay, is you have to have room in your life for, in order of importance, a personal relationship with the Lord. Number one. Your wives and family, number two, okay? And then your ministry/job. Like it doesn't come, we don't need to reverse that order. And I regard this as a conscience issue because if you're not in ministry, a lot of times you don't see what the people in ministry are doing, all right? I'm just letting you know. And I'll give you an example where I learned this for the first time. When I went into youth ministry, I was on a staff of like 12 people in a local church, okay? I'm not going to name churches or whatever the case may be. It probably doesn't matter because it was in Middle Georgia, but we're not worried about all that. But I'm on a staff of about 12, okay? And I was asked to document my hours, what I was doing, who I was with, what was the purpose, and how long it was taking on a weekly basis and turn them into the pastor. Now, how many people on staff do you think were required to turn their hours in? One. It was me. Why? Because I was the youth pastor. Why would the youth pastor be required to do that when nobody else is? Well, because youth pastors do nothing but eat Doritos, okay, and listen to Christian music, except for the one night a week they have youth group, right? No, okay? As a youth pastor, I was accountable for essentially maintaining a small church plant within our church. I'm not telling you this is right or wrong. I'm just telling you the reality of what the situation was. So I was responsible for teaching, discipleship, missions, music, small groups, setup, tear down, IT, like whatever you want to name, like I had it. I set the room up, I taught the message, I oversaw the band, which is a joke because I have no musical ability. Basically, I was herding a group of teenagers into band practices, okay? It's like herding cats, you know what I'm saying? But I was responsible for everything, for the trips, the activities, the snacks, the food, the whatever you want to say. I was responsible for all of it. I almost worked myself into a divorce when I was a youth pastor. You understand what I'm saying? All right? I'm talking about charting my hours where I could prove to you that I was working 70 hours a week for 6 weeks straight without a single day off work. Yet I would have people come to me and say, hey, when are you going to go into ministry? When are you going to go into ministry? Or like youth kids come up and say, what do you do during the week? Like, what do you actually do? And I'm thinking, what do I not do? Like, do you not understand that I go to your school to have lunch with you, Have you not seen that I'm at every community event for every kid here, that I've seen every kid sing a song or dance in a dance competition or wrestle or play football or basketball or play their instrument or whatever the case may be? Like, how do you think this all gets done? How do you think we have 10 small groups and we have the weekly worship service and Sunday school curriculum gets printed out and the leaders show up on time and you get fed? How do you think? But they just don't see it. You understand what I'm saying? Are y'all feel like this is like passionate for me? Do y'all feel like it's coming out? Okay. Kind of like ministry of the word. I'm just wondering, am I selling it? Are y'all getting it? I don't know. Okay. All right. And so that's the reason that I point some of these things out, is I want y'all from a conscience standpoint, number one, to understand that the directive to our staff is they are not always to be available. They are to have a personal relationship with the Lord, a personal relationship with their families before they are to be ministers. Okay? Number one. Number two, I want you to know they are working. Okay? Even if you don't see it, and you won't see a lot of it. That's part of the reason I'm presenting this stuff today, is it's not a humble brag. Look at us. Look at how hard we're working. We pour our lives out more than anybody else does. That's not the point of these things. I want to speak to your conscience, okay? I just want you to know. I'll give you a very practical, for instance. We're going to have a women's event last Saturday, right? Do you think there are difficulties for organizing events when you are a portable church? I'm glad you laughed, all right? Because you got it. Yes, when you are a portable church, there are difficulties for every event that you put on that if you have a permanent facility, it doesn't necessarily work that way. So last Saturday, we have a staff member and an overseer, a volunteering overseer here at our church, show up at our event space that we're renting to do our women's event, because the night before they had an event, so we have to set up on Saturday for this deal. So they show up Saturday morning, and there's a gas smell in the whole building, okay? Well, are you probably gonna invite 80 ladies to a place where you have propane pumping through the room? I'm going to venture a guess to say no. All right, so what do? You either cancel or you switch the event on the day of the event. Now, where's the good choice there? Do y'all see the good choice? Can I have choice C? Can I have C? All right. Well, another person in our church, strictly volunteering, just giving their time through relationship, found us another place to possibly have the thing. And in partnership with staff and many ladies in our church, we moved an event for almost 100 people on the day that it was supposed to happen, and still had the event on Saturday night. All right. Now, well, that's cool, yeah. I love the partnership between staff and just every person that's a body of the church. But see, a lot of y'all didn't see that, right? Okay? A lot of you didn't see that. We had to move youth that night, okay? We showed up at church that weekend where there was, what was the deal last week? I forgot the name of the deal. What was it last week that was here? Oh, yeah, Mistletoe Market, okay? Yeah, Mistletoe Market. We showed up last week and the whole hallway out here was blocked, okay? Like everything completely shut off, all right? There are things happening all the time when we show up at 7:30 in the morning or leaving at 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Sundays that you don't necessarily see, okay? And I want you to know that just from the standpoint of your conscience, all right? From the standpoint of your conscience. So let's keep moving. What are some other things? This one's very practical in terms of attendance. And this is where y'all could be tempted to think, oh, here's the humble brag portion of the message right here. Okay, here it comes. I just want you to know. April 2017, this is when we launched, okay? We launched with an average in April of 2017, if you take out the very first worship service, because everybody and their brother and their gritty grandma from Chattanooga came for the launch, okay? But when that group dispersed, all right, and we just were who we were, we averaged in April of 2017, and actually it might be the first week of May as well, 42 kids in our kids ministry, 204 adults for 246 total people when the church started. Now, I will have you know that is about 100 total more people than I ever even imagined we would start with as a church. I just did not have a concept that we would start that way. It was not even in my mind, much less was it ever a plan, okay? I promise you. I almost, in my infinite wisdom and discernment, suggested to our board that we do a lease with a school where our meeting space might have held 140 people total. okay? Would that have been a disaster? It would have been fun. Hey, let's go 2 services when we start. That's a great idea. We barely pulled off the first service. For those of y'all who were here, somebody say amen. Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, when we did our rehearsal the week before we started, there were some folks in here going, what have we signed up for? Like, these guys don't know what they're doing. This stuff ain't going to work. They can't even turn the sound system on. That's a true story. October, November 2017, 1 year ago from now, we were averaging 60 C kids, 284 adults, 344 total people in attendance. Fast forward a year to the present, today, over the last 4 weeks, we have averaged 69, almost 70 kids in our kids ministry, 336 adults, and over 500 total people. Now, why do I share this with you? Okay? I share this with you because this creates tensions in leadership, oversight, and shepherding. Do you understand that? This creates tensions. Where do we put our time? Where do we put our resources? How do we treat our building? What about our meeting times? Do we go 1 service? Do we go 2 services? And when we talk about those decisions, it's not just about the auditorium, okay? It's not just about this room. What is it also about? It's about our kids back there, okay? Yeah, it's about parking. It's about materials. It's about storage space, okay? It's about our serve team and the capacity of it and how long we can endure and how many people are serving and can we hold up under what is required of us. There are so many different dynamics to every one of those decisions. And there's a domino effect no matter which way you go. And for example, with our children's ministry, we've been realizing over the course of the last few months, we have not adjusted as our children's ministry has grown. Y'all, our children's ministry has almost doubled since we started, but we don't have the ability to add classrooms simply because of our rental agreement with the school and what the school is okay doing and what the school is not okay doing, all right? So we've been going back to the drawing board on our kids' ministry. Okay, what can we do to save space, to organize, to create an environment where people can still be calm, where it's not like a Indian, uprising, back here in children's. Like, what can we do to promote the teaching of the Word, the ministry of the Word with our C kids in the space with the resources and the time that we have? Like, these are the types of things that we're dealing with all the time. By the way, if the Wild Indians drove any of you guys away from C Kids ministry, we've been trying to address it, okay? So we've been training for the last month. Y'all come back to us sometime. And we're trying to get there. We're trying to get there. New staff. We have added 3 new staff this year. I know for a lot of y'all, it feels like Jeff has been around forever. Jeff was completely a volunteer. He was just a part of our serve team like every other person until January. Jeff came on staff in January. Andrew Barber came on staff in March. Rachel Tisdale came on staff this summer. And I'm going to show you these guys because this is something else that y'all may need as a church. If you go to our main page and you go to About Us, you will see a drop-down menu. Jeff Richardson is also our IT man, by the way. So if you have major technological types of questions, please direct them all to Jeff. You can thank me for that later. He made that drop-down menu showing you his expertise in all things instructional technologies. And you can go to staff, and it'll take you to our staff page. Let's flip through everybody. Let's see these guys. Yeah. That's good stuff, right? I know what y'all are thinking. How in the world did she marry him? I've been thinking that for 20 and a half years, all right? Here are my job responsibilities, primarily teaching, leadership. I oversee our small groups. If you have small group questions and you're not involved in a group, they go to me. If you have biblical guidance needs, if you just want to talk about life situations and simply wisdom and discernment and how the Bible would apply to those things, then you contact me directly and we talk through those things or we set something up. There's my email address. You'll see that these are very common and very easy to remember as we go through these different staff members. Next up, Sam Cruz. Sam's oversees our youth ministry. That's why you need to email him if you have a youth-age child in the room and get to be a part of that email contact list. He also oversees our oversees kids ministry that happens on a weekly basis, and he definitely functions along with other staff members helping and shepherding our serve team. Sam at thechapelcleveland.com. Next up, Jeff Richardson. Jeff oversees our music ministries and production. He oversees our outreach, our missions ministry as a church. If you need any questions about missions trips or local outreach or strategic partners or whatever the case may be, that goes to Jeff. Jeff, we left off the IT, dude. You're over the website. You're over the website. You got to get that on there. Okay? And then he participates in our young adult and ecclesia ministry as well. Andrew Barber right here. Andrew came on in March. Okay? So he hadn't even been with us a full year yet. Andrew does a lot of admin for us. Okay? Andrew is working with a lot of our finances. He's got background education, degree in that, and has been really, really helpful with that as a church, just so we're on top of things, kind of crossed our T's and dotted our I's. Helps with service oversight. He's an overseer in our hospitality here on a weekly basis. He also participates with me in biblical guidance and young adult ministry. You can reach him at Andrew at thechapelcleveland.com. Last but not least, Rachel Tisdale. Rachel came on with us part-time this summer, assisting us in Sea Kids and outreach. And frankly, she's just a team player. She and her husband, Justin, have served with us forever. They served with my wife and I when we were doing singles ministry in Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga. And so she is assisting us with basically anything that needs to be done, but primarily those two ministry areas. I show you that so you can know who our staff is, you can know what they're doing, and you can know how you can reach them if you have questions about their ministry areas, okay? The other thing that I would tell you guys is when we're talking through some of these things, I want you to know that there are some tensions there between who we are as a church and who a lot of other traditional churches are. You've heard me talk a lot in the past about us not being a programmatic church, okay? I'll give you a for instance. If we added more staff than we have right now, we could probably do some things with an even greater degree of excellence, okay? But do you know what one of the unintended consequences of always adding I'm not saying we're not going to add staff at some point in time, but you know what one of the unintended consequences of having more staff and more staff and more staff and more staff in ministerial, like vocational ministry is? It's less involvement from the people that are the body of the church. It's less involvement and more ceding over everything to the professional ministers, okay? We're going to walk a tension with that. We just are. That's kind of who we are as a church. I know churches that are our size or smaller that have twice that number of staff, okay? Not right nor wrong, okay? It's just us, all right? Now, if we went a lot more staff, that would mean more money going to those things, which would mean less going to other things, okay? And it would mean, again, just simple, simple reality, probably less buy-in and involvement from other people in the church. But it will mean that our capacity is stretched in such a way that we can't necessarily do some things even that we would like to do, okay? And that's where part of the tension lies in some of our models for ministry. All right, now, one other thing that I want to address here before we go any further, and I'm doing this not because one or two people have had questions, but because many people have had questions. The question would be, what is our model? What is our church oversight? What is our church government, decision-making, stuff like that? What does it look like? Okay? Well, first of all, I would let you know that staff discusses, I would say, everything that happens in our church outside of salaries. Okay? I would say that group discusses everything that happens in our church outside of salaries. Okay? The other thing that I would have you guys understand that maybe many of you don't right now is we also have a board, a church board that's comprised of 3 church elders. Okay? One of those elders is myself. A second one is Pastor Frank Ramseur of Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga, who's the senior pastor of that church as well as the planting pastor of that church. And he's been there for 18 years since the church started. The third one is a retired pastor named Ted Seidel. Ted Seidel, I also met at Calvary Chapel, Chattanooga. And Pastor Ted had, first of all, a long years of experience in just secular vocation, okay, for a long time, but also as a administrative pastor in a couple of different Calvary chapels. And he's got a lot of ability and knowledge and a lot of things that make me want to throw up in my mouth, okay? Like tax law, okay? And like that's enough right there, right? I mean, you don't even have to say anything else. Ted is the one that has helped us, okay? Ted has a background for 20 plus years of traveling all over the country and helping Calvary's plant churches with all of the things that have to be done so that you're on a solid foundation and doing things legally and accountably as you're starting churches. So Ted is the guy that helped us even know that we had to, much less be able to, set up our articles of incorporation, okay? And our tax, ID, and, to get tax-free status so that we can save the money that people are giving for different purchases and things, to do our 501c3, to help set up our budget and set up our books correctly, things of that nature, all right? These guys have expertise, wisdom, and discernment that's been proven out over many years of experience to help us govern, oversee, and hold us accountable as a church, all right? Now, the biggest question for some of y'all probably then at that point is, well, what about the future? Will we have more local elders as a church? The simple answer is yes, okay? We will have more local elders as a church as we grow and mature and go down the road. I do not know exactly when. I do not know exactly how many. I think the Lord will give us that discernment as we go, okay? I also want you guys to know beyond that, man, we're talking to people all the time. We're in a place right now where just being, as transparent as I can, the Lord has made us aware that there is wisdom and there's just wisdom in a multitude of counsel, okay? So we have that in the very mechanics of our church structure and the way that we're set up. And besides that, man, I called a pastor friend of mine who's a church planner a week ago. And I asked him, we taught one service, two services, facilities, like, what do you think about these things? All this kind of, like, that is constantly happening in our church as we pursue wisdom and discernment, knowing that above men, the Holy Spirit is the one that has to lead us in all things. But that is a little bit of insight into how we are set up. The last thing I will say about this topic is this. I'll read you a little bit of scripture out of John chapter 10, verses 11 through 15. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and not concerned about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me, even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep, okay? Here's the thing that I would tell you guys about our staff, all right? The King James Version, instead of saying hired man, it says hireling, okay? The hireling is one who does a job for the paycheck. That is the motive. And when the going gets tough, the hireling gets out of town, okay? That's what they do. They bail because they're concerned with self-preservation. The group that you have right now, despite any shortcoming any of us may have, they are not hirelings, okay? They're shepherds. I want you guys to know that. That's who they are, and they're pouring their life out for the sheep. And hopefully, we're doing it in a wise way. All right, so that's it for the past. Let's talk about the present. And the present, I'm going to start out with a question. How do I get into community at the Chapel of Cleveland, okay? And I think there's a very, very simple answer to the question. First and foremost, if you feel like this is your church home, then I would ask you to make a commitment to come to weekly services on a regular basis. And that's going to be different for different people. It's not a legalistic expectation that you're going to be here every time the doors are open. I think in our society and with our lifestyle, it doesn't quite work that way anymore. But it is a commitment that when you can get here, that you get here for the purpose of corporate worship and fellowship and just being able to devote yourself to the 4 W's, the word, worship, witness, and witness as a part of our church. Second thing, find a small group. Find a small group. We have 8 open small groups as a part of our church. there are 2 places you can find them, and I think this is going to be on our website here, if I'm right. Let's see if it happens. Yes! All right, look at that connection right there, okay? There's the Get Involved button up at the top. That's on the very front page of our website. If you click on that, that tells you how to become part of our church. Attend worship, sign up to serve, join a small group. If you click on that Join a Group button right there, you will see pictures and then information for all of our open groups. Those same open groups, you say, I don't have a computer, I don't want a computer, okay? I have no desire to be on the World Wide Web, okay? We have cards for the open groups out in the lobby. You can pick one up. They'll give you enough information that you can consider the group, and if you want more, it'll have contact information so you can contact the small group leader and ask questions to give you more information about that group. The third way that you become involved in the church is you find a place to serve. This is our process. If you ask, how do I get involved in the church? You come to weekly services regularly, you find a small group, you find a place to serve. Just that simple, okay? If you desire to serve, 2 ways that you can sign up to serve. One is that button right there. It will take you to a form. You fill it out. That'll go to a staff member. The staff member will contact you over the course of a week or 2 to get you put in the appropriate place. Or again, you're not the computer person. There are cards always out in the lobby so that you can pick one up, fill it out, drop it in the bucket, and then we'll contact you in person over the course of the next couple weeks. Those are the 2 ways that you can sign up to serve. Other points of connection, okay? This is just a general exhortation to the church body. When you don't know each other, you have to have many points of contact with one another before you start to feel comfortable with each other. That means time, okay? That means the number of times that you connect with each other. That means sharing your stories even though you shared them in the past and you can't remember. That means reintroducing yourself when you know their face but you can't remember their names. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? It takes a lot of those interactions before community really starts to develop. So the other option you have, or the other thing that I would exhort you in, is just consistently participate. When we have other events, when we have family things, when we have worship nights, whatever the case may be, youth group, missions activities, pray for me, I would just encourage you to participate in those things because they are just one more chance to connect with other people that are a part of the same body so that you can grow in fellowship and community with those people. Last thing I'll share on this one right here, we also have some people in the body that are trying on their own just to create more opportunities for community. Okay, so check this out. Let's see what we got here. Okay. All right, we don't actually have screenshots of the groups, okay? First of all, the Chapel Cleveland is our regular Facebook page, okay? We administrate and oversee that one. The 3 below that are just simply run and created by people who are a part of our body, right? So what I'm doing right now is denying responsibility for anything those other 3 groups do, okay? That's what I'm doing. But just as an opportunity for relationship, the Chapel Community Group, that is primarily intended for single people within our body at the Chapel Cleveland, okay? Chapel Moms, that's kind of self-explanatory, right? And Ladies of the Chapel, also self-explanatory, okay? Those are just other points of connection that people in our body desiring more community have done on their own just to promote community and to promote fellowship, or what we call withness within the context of our body. Now, if you can't search and find those things, because those are closed groups, you have to be kind of invited, so to speak, into those groups. Contact us as a staff. We'll connect you with the right people, and we'll let you just get started, just building relationships, okay? And this, to some degree, this is how I want our church to work. I do not expect our church to be so programmatic that we will have something every night of the week that all you have to do is show up to it and you will have community, okay? I do not expect that to be the case, okay? As a matter of fact, to some degree, I almost want there to be this sense of, man, I just wish we had a little bit more. Like, I just wish we had one more. I just wish we had a little bit here. I just wish we just did this a little. Like, I like what we got. I just wish we had a little bit more. And at that point, for me, the exhortation is, well, why don't you take that and run with it, right? Why don't you do the deal? Why don't you invite the people? Why don't you initiate the conversation? Why don't you invite to coffee or to lunch, or why don't you invite over? Why don't you do the thing? Like, I think there's a tension and a partnership in community between the church and all the individuals that make up the church. So we're aware of our need for community. We are growing as a church in community. And part of the reason we've done the events and we have the programs that we do have is to create opportunities for community. But then my exhortation for every single person in the room, myself included, is this, and I'm repeating myself from a message, maybe a year ago. Hey, if you want community, be communal. Be communal people, okay? That's part of what it comes down to. You cannot program fellowship within the church. You can create opportunities, but you can't create fellowship, okay? We're all responsible for that. All right, last thing, third, the future. We looked at the past, we talked about the present, where we want to go as a church into the future. Let's start with missions. We're planning on having 4 trips in 2018. Y'all remember talking about things we can't control? Y'all remember talking about that with our facility? We printed up 500 mission tags that we're going to give out next week, and then one of our ministry partners canceled a trip on us. Good times. All right. It's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But we're planning 4 mission trips in 2018. 2 of them will be international, and it was a domestic one, that we're having an issue with. And so we've got 2 international mission trips planned for 2018. You'll be hearing about those in the next couple weeks, by the way. If you're like, dude, where's the information? I want the information. I don't know. It's coming, okay? We're working on it as quickly as we can. Second thing, we want to develop more local strategic partners, okay? Right here in Bradley County, domestically, even internationally, whatever the case may be, we want to be invested in more ministry, and especially ministry that's impacting our own community. We want to develop some local outreaches, okay? And frankly, our vision for local outreaches is not all about the church doing things, but about maybe equipping some of you guys to create some opportunities to interact with people in your communities and in your spheres of influence. And we'll be working on that. And our hope is also to have a youth mission trip next summer, okay? Now, Sam's in the room. I hope I'm not sharing anything I'm not supposed to share. It's nothing set in stone. This is our hope, okay? I'm not referring to his wife. Her name's Hope. Okay, there you are. Hey, good to see you. Okay. Our hope is to have a mission trip for our youth to participate in next summer. I would also add that our hope is to even be a more generous church next year. I want to see our generosity grow each and every year as much as we possibly can. The other thing is the church's trainings. Okay, trainings. I want us to be an equipping church. And in one of those vision casting messages over the last year, we talked about this a lot. And this is one of the places that I kind of struggle with attention and almost feeling bad, because when you go back and listen to one of those messages, you're going to talk about the equipping things that we want to do, and we hadn't done them this year, okay? And you know the reason why? It's capacity. It's just simple capacity, all right? That's what it is. But our desire is to be an equipping church, equipping in terms of the missionality of our church. We want to create some classes and some structures to also encourage our parents and our marriages in our church, okay? And we also want to equip people to be able to read your word. We want to, as a church, be able to equip people of all ages to simply be able to read your word, because we feel like it is that important. Our desire in the next year is to create 3 to 4 new small group opportunities. Okay? I had a note on my sheet that I didn't have up here. I think this is pretty interesting. I want y'all to listen to this, okay? We have, these are rough numbers. These are approximations, but I want you to think about this, okay? I'm going back to our attendance numbers. We're averaging roughly 405 total people. Let's just go with the adults. We're averaging roughly 336 adults, okay? And that's here. That's not the church. Like, do we have more adults than that involved in the church? Yes. We're talking here, like booties and seats, okay? Booty is as good as I could get, okay? People in seats, 336 adults on a weekly basis over the last 4 weeks, right? So check this out. Roughly speaking, we have 150 people involved in small groups. Roughly speaking, we have 150 people that have served one time in the last 2 months. Roughly speaking, we have about 150 gifts a month. Okay? Roughly speaking, how many people make up the core of our church body? 150. Okay? Y'all see how that works? I thought that was kind of fascinating. All right? It was really, really interesting. Now, that is not a slap. That is not a dig. That is not an anything else besides the knowledge of a church that less than half of our attending population are actually involved in real community in our church. Okay? That's the situation. I just want y'all to know it. And I want us to grow in that. I would like to see all those percentages go up as people are involved in deeply in our church. Serve team participation. Where are we going? Okay? Our desire is that we would have enough servants in our church that any person who serves would not be serving any more than once every 3 weeks. Okay? And the reason why is because some of our service roles take a great deal of effort. Number two, some of our service roles require you to not be in the church service. And we value this, okay? That's why. Our desire is to have it set up and have enough involvement so that you would only have to participate. I say have to. It shouldn't be that bad. We serve because Jesus served us, all right? We serve because we are servants. But I'm just saying that this is important, and we want you all to be able to participate in this even though you're invested in serving. That's why we want to spread out the workload, all right? So to get to that point, I asked the guys, all right, what's your wish list? First of all, let's talk about C Kids, okay? We need an additional 6 to 8 C Kids elementary teachers. I'm being specific here, elementary teachers in our C Kids ministry. Would you be one of the 6 to 8? You know, when I go back and look at the 150 people, the resources are in the room. The resources are right here, okay? Would you be one of the 6 to 8 elementary teachers? Sam's also asking for a couple of folks. Maybe Lee has like a educational, I can't remember. I've got friends that graduated from college with a degree that was basically playing games with groups of people, okay? I don't remember what you call it, but they went to college for it, okay? Do we have that at Lee? Do we have any of those folks that you're a professional, like, group game person, okay? Sam wants a couple of those people in the gym for our kids on a weekly basis just to organize some games, have fun, but keep it organized and in line and stuff like that. So that's mostly what he's looking for in C Kids. Jeff, for worship, he's looking to add one person in every position in the band. So if you look at any instrument or any place up here, he's looking to add depth to every single one of them by one person. In production, he wants to add another 5 or 6 people back there. We're talking about running the camera. We're talking about running the graphics and the slides. We're talking about the lights. And by the way, we have a really complicated situation with our lights. It's stuff like off and on, okay? So if you've got that capability, you're probably qualified. So we're looking for about 4 or 5 people in production. Andrew asked for another 6 people in setup, okay? Setup meets at 7:30 on Sunday mornings, okay? And we work until about 10 o'clock when we have tip time for our volunteers. So you're talking 2 to 2.5 hours of cleaning, moving, setting up chairs, shuffling things around, setting up signs, whatever the case may be, hospitality area, brewing coffee, things like that. That setup. We're looking for another 6 people for our teardown team. Teardown is all the stuff that we do in kids ministry and in here. It's taking back down everything that we put up, for setup. And it's vacuuming after ourselves and leaving the facility much cleaner than how we found it, which is a ministry to our neighbors here at Cleveland Middle School, okay? Okay, I'm sorry. My brain, I'm sorry. And so that's what that is, all right? That's after the service, roughly 12:30 until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's about an hour and a half after the service to get everything put back up. where it needs to go and have things cleaned up. We're looking for about another 6 ushers, okay, or greeters, just to help people get in and out of our worship services. And they actually get to be in here during the worship services, okay? So that's what we're looking for. And again, your 2 places that you can sign up for those things, cards out in the lobby, website, go to get involved, hit the button, fill out the form, and we'll get in touch with you about those things. Finances. Last couple things, and I promise we're almost done. Finances. The goal for 2018 was to reach our 3-year reserve, our 3-month reserves, 3-year reserves. That would be crazy, okay? Our goal for 2018 was to reach our 3-month reserves, which we did very early in the year, okay? Then to start saving for a down payment. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And to be generous as a church. It was to save and to be generous, okay? So here's where we're at financially. We reached our 3-month reserve early in 2018. That means we could go 3 months with not another dime or cent coming into the church and function as though nothing ever changed, okay? So we reached that very early, and now we have been saving a good bit of money over the course of 2018. The reason we've been saving is because our giving is 10% over what we projected for this year, but our expenses are 6% under what we budgeted for the year, okay? That if you budget at home, that's the way you want it to look a lot of times, right? Expenses down, giving is up. We've been stashing that money. We've been being generous as a church. I talked about our missions and things like that before, but we've been stashing that money away. We are almost halfway to a 20% down payment, okay? Let me back up. We've got a relationship with a bank where we have access to $1 million, just to be very bold and frank with you, okay? We didn't go into the bank and say, hey, fellas, y'all got any of them no money down loans? Okay. If we ever do anything, we want to be as fiscally responsible as we can, okay? So to have access to that $1 million, the goal was, hey, we never want to touch that unless we got 20% down at least, to be able to put down on this. So above our 3-month reserve, we're almost halfway to a savings of 20% down on that loan, okay? Now, our goal for 2019 is to stretch our generosity and to meet our 20% down payment so that it is available when the time comes. Now, some of you are thinking, is it time? No, it's not. It's time to save, okay? All right? That's what I'm telling y'all, all right? So regarding a building, the future's cloudy. I want y'all to know we are looking at and considering everything. Are you looking to buy anything? Sure. Are you looking to rent anything? Yes. Are you looking at lease to own? Yes, absolutely, okay? Are you looking at, sure, we'll look at that too. We're looking at everything and presenting it to our leadership and praying through everything, but the financial goal is there so that we can be ready to move if and when the time is right. And until then, guess what? This is home, okay, right? Y'all got to be careful. Don't let your heart get squirrely. I can't wait till we get up out of here. That's when things start to get real sideways right there. Got to be grateful for what we have. So summary. In 2019, what do we want to do? We want to grow in mission. We want to grow in community. We want to grow in hospitality. And we will not move off our spot, which is to minister the word. Nothing gets in the way of that, okay? I hope that is clear. That is about as concise as I could make it, okay? Like it really is. All right, well, cool. I'll take that. That was really like a pity clap. Like I thought we were going to be in here until like 1:30. Okay, that's really what that was. But I will take it. Okay, I'll take it. I love you guys. The last year and a half, we are 17 months old as a church. It has been a great privilege and a great encouragement to be a part of this church. All right, we love you guys. That's it for today. You are dismissed. Hey, let's get all up in Judges next week. It's going to be fun. All right, y'all have a great week.